Welcome to BW Healthcare World. Today we have with us a very special guest, Mr. Vishwanath Swarup, who's the Chief Operating Officer of BSV, one of the leading vaccination companies in the country. Mr. Swarup is a business leader with experience across both emerging as well as developed markets. He's someone who's led businesses for companies like Dr. Reddy's, Abbott, Pfizer, Unilever, McKinsey, and Max Bupa. So clearly he has a rich experience across healthcare value chain in areas of strategy, in areas of ops, sales, and marketing with very clear objective of serving the patients. He has successfully turned around many businesses and managed alliances and deployed large teams to manage these businesses. Welcome to Business World Healthcare, Mr. Vishwanath Swarup. So welcome, Mr. Swarup. Thank you so much for joining us at BW Healthcare World. My first question to you, what has been the biggest success story of Bharat Serums until now?
Sure. First of all, Harbinder, it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for giving us an opportunity to talk more about BSV. We are a 5-decade, 50-year-old company. So it's really hard to kind of point out one thing that you're asking for. But I think it's been a 50-year journey that as an organization, we've come through, right? And there are several firsts in the Indian market that we've been able to bring. But now there are several firsts in the world as well that we've been able to build, right? Just in the benefit of, recency, I would call out one of the products that we've recently launched, Anti-D. This is actually a first bio entity coming out of India to be commercialized, right? And it's a product with a worldwide patent. So while India is a pharmacy of the world, and we supply a lot of generic medicines for patients across the world, I think we at BSV take a lot of pride in innovating in India, for India, as well as for the world. And the most recent example is this Anti-D product, which is a new biological entity that we recently launched in India, and now we are taking it global.
Awesome. So, Mr. Swarup, I understand that BSV is focusing on women healthcare, but I want to understand what are the key aspects that are important for the development of women's healthcare as per you.
Sure. So let me just give you an overview of how we are structured and where all we kind of participate and serve patients. Of course, women's health is our core and continues to be the focus, and that's what I'll come to. But we also have a significant presence in the critical care space. And for layman terms, it's the ICU. When the patients are most vulnerable, we have very important products which help save life over there. Then if I move to the other end of the spectrum, we have a lot of vaccines as well as products which protect against rabies or dog bite or a snake bite. Now, if you look at what happens in India or in some other countries as well, you would look at it. These are, these incidences happen when people are the most vulnerable, that section of the society. So we are very happy to be core of women's health, but also serve these two specific areas of critical care as well as emergency medicine, as we call it. So that's been the focus. So we are not just women's health, but again, a couple of other areas that we cover as well. Now, why women's health? First of all, I think, to be very honest, a lot of pharma companies say, we are this therapy company or that therapy company. But at the end of the day, I find that as a very negative connotation. How can I be a diabetes company, right? So it's a disease that we are actually serving of women in India, specifically being the main focus. And why women, right? Of course, if you look at how we've progressed as a country, yes, we made a lot of improvement and a lot of movement towards an equitable society. But I think we are far from an ideal world right now. If you see women representation in the workforce, etc., we are way below world averages and where we need to be as a country, right? So that's one area that we've picked, and that's what we are going after. People talk about COVID. Let me give you a data point, right? You know, the risk of a woman dying during pregnancy increased a third during COVID. Now, that has never been talked about. That has never been addressed. And so when you start looking at that section of the society, which again, right now I feel is highly vulnerable and not really being addressed, I think that's the reason why we've picked that area as a core focus and driving action over there.
Got it. So, Mr. Sarup, what has been the journey so far in development of women-oriented products at BSV?
Right. So, like I said, you know, I can't go back 50 years, but you can really imagine 50 years of hardcore research and development, which has led to many firsts for India as well as for the world. I already talked about an anti-D product, which we launched as a new biological entity, worldwide patent coming out of our lab from Airoli, right? Now, in addition to that, there are a lot of patents that we have for our products. We were one of the first biosimilars for one of our key products in the infertility space. Now, that's another core area where, as humankind, I would say, when we come together, that is one of the things that as a couple, everybody takes joy, right? When you have a child. And unfortunately, a huge number of couples in India are facing this problem of infertility. And our lifestyles are changing. It's even going faster, right? So we were one of the first to bring in a biosimilar for one of these products, very important products. And that reduced the cost of therapy significantly and drove significant more affordability for aspiring couples. So I think, again, continuing down that path of innovation, we've recently acquired the TTK human pharma business, which had some very big brands in women's health space. Now, if I look at it, it's very clear that we are one of the largest players, and if not the largest women's health company in India. And that's what we take pride ourselves in.
Awesome. Awesome. But apart from women's health, Bharat Serums is one of the pioneers in vaccination space in the country, And what I want to understand from you is what has been the journey like? Specifically, what are the challenges that you faced during this journey, which you have either overcome or are trying to overcome to be where you are today?
Sure. See, unfortunately, as a country, while our heritage is all about, where was the zero invented, where was zero found, or whatever you want to use as the right term, we've lost that heritage over the years. We are no longer innovating, right? And I think that's where, if you look at our network, so we clearly have one of the cutting edge labs, world-class labs in Airoli with more than 100 scientists. And again, I'm proud to say a big chunk, about 22%, 25% of them are women working in that facility. We have a facility in Ambernath again, world-class manufacturing, exporting to multiple countries. We have a facility in Germany, which is a US FDA approved facility. Right. We were making investments in opening up another greenfield plant in India. Right. So we are expanding significantly in these spaces to cater to our patients. Now, what obstacles? I think if you look at it, we are as a country moving up in this pendulum. When the Prime Minister talks about Atmanirbhar, he talks about innovating, make in India. I think these are the things where the government is really trying to reduce some of these barriers. But the barriers could be as simple as finding the right talent. We are pharmacy of the world, but if you're a few years ago, and if you rewind back 15 years, the smartest talent in India used to get exported and exported to the US. So how do we retain talent over here, get the right talent to drive this innovation? Because that's one of the critical things. The investments that are required, the success rate when you're really doing research-based drug innovation is very, very low by the nature of it. So there's a significant amount of investment and patience required. Of course, the regulatory pathway, etc., the government is working very, very hard to smoothen that out for us so that we can actually innovate. So they've driven a lot of process improvements, regulatory improvements, which are improving and getting more businesses to innovate. So I think we're just beginning right now as a country, but I think the next leap of growth in our GDP has to be driven by innovation, and innovation in different fields, and pharma being one of the biggest ones, biggest drivers there.
Right. So by when do you think that the R&D space, India is going to be controlling the R&D space? I understand that we've had the legacy where the focus has been more on manufacturing rather than R&D for whatever reasons.
Sure.
But we also know that the talent is there, but it gets exported. And the government is taking steps along with the private organizations to change the whole paradigm on this. By when do you think we will see a significant change for this in India?
Sure, I should be playing the stock market if I can accurately guess that on a lighter note. But I think, it's a journey. Rome was not built in a day, as they say, right? Very, very, very cliched, but I think it's true. I think you've got to start with how do you become a very, very clear regulatory pathway, clear incentives to drive innovation. The government has now started announcing incentives which are production linked, again, driven by manufacturing, because the conventional thinking is, manufacturing creates jobs, which again ensures prosperity and more people coming in the workforce. But how do we make sure we have high skilled jobs, right? And that's the next leap that we need to make. So I can go on and on this, but to keep it short, I think it starts with education reforms. How do you get the right talent? How do you become attractive as a company, as a country, to get the right investments for driving innovation, which would mean, the tax structures, the regulatory pathway, the infrastructure which is required. Once you get that out, I think you do hit an S curve in this. It'll be a journey, and then we'll just take off. It'll be an exponential growth after that. And I think those kinds of things I can clearly see are falling in place. So in my mind, I don't want to give a number, but clearly we're not very far away from that. Once those things come up, you will find innovation coming out of India for the world across different segments and not just pharma.
Awesome. Yeah, I completely resonate your thought, because we've seen that happen in the field of information technology, and I'm pretty confident that healthcare is the next domain where the change is going to happen. Now, coming back to the different verticals that BSV is working on, what are the verticals other than the women's health that are going to be the ones where BSV is expanding in the near future?
Right. So let me, first of all, our motto and our mission is essentially we are driven by people and science. So we will continue to stay focused on science and drive innovation through our R&D. Women's health is going to continue to be our core. But then how do we bring this innovation to life, right? Digital is a buzzword, but I think if you look at some segments like the financial segment, right? The way the world has been literally turned upside down in terms of UPI, etc. Nobody maybe 6 years ago even thought of that happening, or maybe 10 years ago didn't think of that actually happening. And I think we are getting into this digital space in a big way, right? And there are different elements of getting into this digital space. Our foremost is bsvwithyou.com, right? And bsvwithyou.com is essentially a knowledge portal where currently we bring a lot of cutting edge scientific information for HCPs, and they can go ahead, log on to this portal and get access to world-class journals across the world. We are very happy that more than 12,000 HCPs have already registered on this portal. However, having said that, this is not the end state for this. And that's why we've called it BSV with you. We haven't called it BSV Doctor Online or anything like that, because unless we reach out to our patients, to our consumers, to our women, the job is not done. And I think our next pivot is going to be, how do we take this to our core customers, which is women, right? And all things women kind of thing, and make it an ecosystem for them, right? The other space continues to be technologically. I think we are very big on a couple of platforms. So the recombinant platform, as it's called, I think we are very big there. And the product that I talked about, the new biological entity, is a recombinant product. We are going to continue to invest and become world-class in terms of the number of innovations coming out of India. We are going to invest in the equine platform, right? That's another platform that we have internally developed, one of the largest equine platform companies in India, and that is another space that we will continue to invest in. So if I look at therapy-wise or technology-wise, it's going to be, recombinants, it's going to be equine. On the other side, if I look at, how do we reach our customers, our patients, our doctors, it's going to be a very clear and impactful digital journey.
So since you spoke about the end customer, the patient, and this is one of my favorite questions I keep asking everyone, because I'm trying to figure out an answer as to how we can make a difference in the industry. We know that we are living in a scenario or at a time when we are plagued with distrust and suspicion, and many a times when you want to make a difference, there is new technology, there is new development that has happened. The acceptance of that becomes an issue, because there's a doubt in the mind as to, is the doctor trying to sell me something which is not required, etc. What is BSV trying to do to educate the users to understand what is good for them and what is not?
Sure. See, we fundamentally understand that, the number of hours we are spending on screens has dramatically increased. The noise that we get from different ads and commercials, and thanks to Facebook, very customized commercials, is manifold. So in this clutter, how do you break through this? And that is why when I talked about bsvwithyou.com, I think we are not going directly to consumer right now. We want to build a platform which can become a trusted platform for our customers, which is doctors, right? Once that is there, credibility established, right? Then you kind of go to customers, eventually the patients, the women that we're talking about, and drive focus over there. So you will need that partnership from different players in the ecosystem to be actually able to drive that. And again, online payments, I still remember, literally for every one online payment that we used to make a few years ago, you would hear 10 times that, oh, there's so much fraud, etc., etc. But, thanks to COVID, now everybody's using digital payments, right? Are frauds still happening? I'm sure they're happening, but as a percentage, they've come down and people have gotten smarter, right? So similar thing will happen in this space, that, as we are getting into the digital space, someone who can build, and that's what we are trying to build, a system, a portal, or, a hub where there is credibility that when you go there, you'll get the right information. Today, when you Google, of course, it's driven by their advertising revenues, and you'll see that the websites pop up in that order. But is that really right for the patient, right? And I think that's where eventually the proof of the pudding is. Internally, we are very, very clear. When we do this, we follow very high ethical standards. So we will not recommend our products per se. We will recommend what is right for the patient to get the treatment. And if it includes our product, fair, right? But if it doesn't, it has to be first right for the patient, and then anything else, right? And I think when we take that approach and taking this approach to doctors, I think that's how we will eventually build a trusted platform, because that will be the key requirement in this cluttered space.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Now, coming on to the pharmaceutical industry, uh, we know that India is progressing. We are becoming the pharma manufacturing capital. But in terms of the growth of the pharmaceutical industry in India, what are some of the things that you see will be impacting the change, and what are the changes that we will be seeing very soon?
Sure. So let me, I'll come to the bright side of things, but I think one of the things is, yes, we pride ourselves as, the pharma manufacturing hub, and now the vaccine manufacturing hub. But I think COVID also taught us that how much we are dependent on China for APIs, right? So I think what we really need to do is backward integration, get the API manufacturing back, because it was in India. Due to XYZ reasons, which I don't want to get into, it got moved to China. And those are wrong reasons, right? Once we get vertically integrated, I think the Atmanirbhar vision will come through. Now, today, wherever we are, I think, and if I look at some of the numbers, the growth rates that we will witness will be unprecedented. If you look at some of the numbers that are coming out in the economic survey, it's anywhere between 120 to 150 billion dollars by 2030, right? Now, those are big numbers for us. Again, there will be 2-3 things coming out. One is, I'll take an example of adult vaccination. In my personal experience, I was working for a company that wanted to get into adult vaccination, and we did some surveys. This was not even a known concept in India. Adults never took vaccines in India. But unfortunately, or whatever, due to COVID, now even adults in India are aware of vaccination. In my stint in health insurance, right? When I really observed, we really don't have health insurance in India. We actually have illness insurance, because insurance will only kick in when you're in a hospital lying on a bed. So once the awareness of patients go up, education level goes up, the drive to stay healthy goes up, preventive care comes in, insurance penetration and the right insurance, health insurance and not illness penetration goes up, of course, it's going to explode. And once we are vertically integrated, I think sky is the limit of how we kind of really go after the world market and serve patients, not just in India and world, but across the world.
So what is the role of genomics as in pharmaceutical and vaccination development that we see? We understand that there's a very important role, but how is it actually going to change the way the pharmaceutical industry will be operating in the future?
Right. So I think it's, I hate to use this term, but I think we're scratching the surface there, right? We've been interacting with a lot of startups in India who are working in this space. And some of the concepts that we are seeing will shatter how drug development happens, how patients get treated. Why should you wait for, let's say, 48 hours for a culture report or even more when the patient is literally fighting for their life? I think these technologies can really, lead to much faster, much more customized drug development. And then when it comes to treatment, much faster identification or diagnosis of the issue. And again, pinpoint the issue rather than to some extent take a little bit of a broader spectrum approach that we today take, right? So I think it can be a game changer both in drug discovery as well as, treatment choices. What will enable this is also the computing power, which has now become very, very cheap, because a lot of these models require significant amount of AI, machine learning, etc., and significant amount of computing power. Now, as computing power cost has come down, more and more of these startups will be coming in. So we've actually plugged in and we've launched products or One we've commercialized, the other one we are working towards doing some testing and trials, partnering with these startups. And again, Indian startup story is now making a global splash. And clearly, we've got some of the brightest minds in India working in these startups. So I think it's going to be a fundamental game changer in healthcare space for us.
Got it. So what can you share a little bit about BSV's partnerships specifically towards addressing PCOS as a disorder?
Right. So I think a couple of things, right? We've recently acquired the TTK healthcare pharma products portfolio. As a function of that, we do have a lot of products now in the PCOS space. Now, PCOS, more likely than not, gets undiagnosed in India, right? One, because of awareness, the taboo around it, how do you go and talk, etc., etc. So we are trying to address this very, very clearly in terms of how do we demystify this space, get patients aware of their condition, talking about it to their doctor, and getting the right treatment. I think in terms of the clinical support on the medical support which is required is very, very clearly there. And there are treatments out there which can be, it is more of an awareness issue. Where we think we are as a country lacking today is, some of these spaces when it comes to recombinant technology or, anti-snake venom, again, serving the most vulnerable section of the society. Here, quite frankly, we are partnering with National Chemical Laboratory to develop cutting-edge world-class cell lines. We are working with the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore to actually develop a regional anti-snake venom. As you can understand, different parts of the country will have different snakes. However, today, it's the same anti-snake venom which is given across the country. Why can't we have customized by region? And so we are working with them with this institute to kind of bring that to the market in the fastest possible way. So again, PCOS is the main focus. We are driving there from our women's health space, but then we are also looking for partners who can bring in and help us cut down the speed to market so that we can address the patient need faster.
So, Mr. Swarup, are there any clinical trials underway and which can lead us to certain vaccinations or drugs that we can expect from BSV family soon?
Sure. So we're working on a couple of the platforms that I talked about, be it the recombinant or the equine. And there are some clinical trials already underway. In some clinical trials, some they're in the early stages of development, and they will get to clinical trials in the coming months. So we will continue to invest in this space and create very specific solutions for our patients. And again, the strategy is very, very clearly focused on women's health. And in the back end, we will be focused on recombinant products as well as equine products that we'll be working on.
So I know for an organization, there are roadblocks that you face, there are challenges that you face, but they also come with a set of opportunities, right? Now, to keep in mind or to take the benefit of these opportunities, are there any asks that you have from the policy makers that can make this journey better?
So I think, the government has already is moving in the right direction. I think the PLI announcements that happen are very, very positive. I think when it comes to, overall approach of the government of now recognizing how the pharma industry is actually a national jewel, which has given us the reputation in the world that we have today and aids that, I think we're moving down the right path. I think if I was to say, how do you continue to fuel innovation? So even the PLI scheme right now, if you look at it, it's more linked to the branded generic space or the generic space. How do we create more incentives for company to invest in innovation? I think those are elements, if we can put in place, that S curve that we were talking about will be pulled up by at least 5 years, I feel.
So, Mr. Swarup, my last question to you is not about BSV, it is about Mr. Vishwanath Swarup. What is it that you do to keep to break to take a break from your hectic schedule? Are there any hobbies, passions that you're pursuing that you would want to share with us?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I think when you are working in this space and in healthcare, I think it's a little bit of fundamental duty to kind of stay on and make sure we are doing everything that we can to address the patient needs. And that's clearly the first priority. But having said that, I think I'm very much a family man. I have a 12-year-old daughter who keeps reminding me that she's going to turn 13 next month. And I think my favorite pastime is spending time with her, doing some math problems right now. So over a period of time, I think as you age, your hobbies change as well. I used to be an ardent, automobile fan, and I used to track every new launch done by one of these car makers. But I think over a period of time, I've mellowed down, and Mumbai traffic and Mumbai roads have kind of helped that, sped up that a little bit. So now I think it's a little bit more just staying with the family, being with the family, reading a book from time to time. Not a big reader, but yeah, something that my wife would recommend, I would definitely read up on.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking out time, Mr. Vishwanath Swarup. It has been such a pleasure speaking to you and understanding what BSV is doing, understanding what they are doing in the space of critical care and emergency medicine, and their the focus on the women's health that is there. And it's actually reaffirming the belief which underlies what BSV does, which is driven by people and science. Lovely speaking to you. Thank you so much for taking our time to be with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, really appreciate you guys taking the time out.